Boxing fans have been starving for a proper game since Fight Night Champion back in 2010. 14 years later, Undisputed came along and promised to finally fill that void. And you know, it had its punches, it had the names, and it had the hype. But here we are in 2025, and while the game still packs a mean hook, it feels like it's missing the heart. So today I want us to take a look at Undisputed, what it gets right, where it completely drops the ball, and whether it's even worth your time and money. So first we're gonna start with the graphics. Visually, Undisputed sits right around the standard for the current generation games. Like, you know, they won't blow your mind, but they are pretty damn solid. This is also one area where I noticed real improvements compared to when I last played this game back in early access in 2024. Back then the shadows looked downright ugly, and it really dragged the whole presentation down. Now though, they've cleaned that up quite nicely. Fighters also look very detailed, the textures are quite decent, and for the most part the animations and physics are spot on. Sure, every now and then you will see some bizarre knockout animation or those infamous spaghetti arms, but overall the way fighters move and throw punches feels surprisingly realistic. We also got venues, which deserve a quick mention as well. They are lively enough and add atmosphere, but honestly, once the fight starts, you're not going to pay much attention to what's happening outside the ring. There are also pre-fight introductions and cutscenes sprinkled in as well, which do help with overall feeling of immersion. So yeah, overall the visuals aren't groundbreaking, but they are definitely not where the problems with Undisputed lie. Where the presentation really stumbles though is with the commentary. Like, yeah, it is in the game, but the variety is painfully low. You will hear the exact same lines every single fight, over and over again. And you know, normally I can live with lackluster commentary in sports games. After all, I played Pro Evolution Soccer for years. But here, it stood out in a really bad way. It got repetitive so damn fast that it actually started to annoy me. Then we have gameplay, and this is where things with Undisputed start to get really complicated. See, some people will tell you that the game is flat out broken and a terrible boxing title. Others will swear it's the best boxing simulator ever. I think the truth, at least in my eyes, is somewhere in between. Like, Undisputed isn't a disaster, but it's also not the great savior of boxing games we were all hoping for. Cause you know, at its best, it's really fun boxing game with serious potential in its core mechanics. Let's take for example Control Scheme, which is quite straightforward and easy to pick up. Fighters respond well to your inputs, and most importantly, throwing punches feels damn good. Like landing a clean counter, a heavy hook, or a crushing uppercut has real weight behind it. And in simulation mode especially, those punches matter. You feel the impact thanks to solid visuals and satisfying sound design. Now, I've seen some complaints about player movement in Undisputed, but I didn't mind it at all. In fact, I found it to be actually quite realistic. The way fighters shift their weight, plant their feet, and circle the ring felt pretty damn good to me. I also had a lot of fun with online matches. You know, the best part of fighting human opponents, I think, is figuring them out. Are they some type of wild knockout hunters? Are they maybe body snatchers looking to gas you out? Or maybe they are these patient counter punchers waiting to punish every mistake you make? In my experience, I actually saw a lot of different playstyles which kept fights fresh and interesting. And when things click, when the matches get really good, that's when things get incredibly intense and satisfying. I'll give you an example. I was winning a fight comfortably on points and expected to cruise through the later rounds of the match with better stamina management. But then my opponent started targeting my right eye, swelling it up badly. Suddenly, the fight turned into a frantic race. Could I shut down their pressure before the referee called a technical knockout against me? It was really intense, but thankfully I pulled it off, but at the same time my palms were sweaty the whole damn time. And you know, those moments are when Undisputed shines the brightest. But unfortunately, there's another side to the gameplay. The one filled with technical cracks, balance problems, and mechanics that just don't feel right. Online matches, for instance, besides being really good, can also be quite a mess. Punches often land or miss in ways that make no sense. Shots that should never connect somehow find the target, while punches that look quite perfect on your screen just whiff into thin air. It's really bizarre. And then we have counter-attacking. See, Undisputed puts way too much emphasis on this one aspect of boxing fights. It got to the point where solid clean punches are so much less impactful than catching someone with one counter that it's just damn ridiculous. And as a result, proper boxing is not rewarded in this game, and that's a shame. Stamina also works sometimes in bizarre ways. Take that fight as an example that I just mentioned. My opponent threw hundreds of reckless punches with actually awful accuracy, while I tried to play smart and conserve my energy. But unfortunately, by the end, their stamina was barely lower than mine, so make it make sense. On top of that, we have issues with dazed players being able to run laps around the ring. I mean, if you've seen this particular Reddit meme about chasing down a dazed opponent, then yeah, it's painfully accurate. So yeah, if you take it all in, it's a lot of issues. And the thing is that if you're dealing with one of those problems in a single fight, it's not the end of the world, and it will not disturb you that much. But when multiple problems hit you in the same match, the frustration piles up really fast. And that's what makes Undisputed so disappointing, because the foundation is there, the fun is there, but the cracks in the gameplay kill the momentum. And now you might be thinking, like, yeah, okay man, but they are still updating the game, so it will get better over time, right? Well, I wish I could share your optimism. Yeah, the devs keep releasing new patches, but they've been underwhelming. Like, they are fixing very little, very slowly. In fact, I've seen plenty of players say that the updates actually made the game worse for them. And to add insult to injury, the developers seem way more focused on pumping out paid DLCs with fighters than fixing the core gameplay, which makes it pretty hard to trust their priorities moving forward. Next up, we have the career mode, and unfortunately this one is also a mixed bag. On the surface, it's super bare bones in terms of presentation, but there's actually some depth hiding underneath. You've got some nice touches here, like setting up training sessions, signing your team, managing weight, and preparing for fights. Those systems are genuinely cool and add a layer of strategy to the game. The problem is, career mode doesn't really feel like a career. There are no cutscenes, no storyline, and not much variety to break up the routine. Normally, I'm not a fan of forced minigames or gamified training sessions in sports titles. But here, I think a boxing career mode without them just feels flat. It lacks personality, agency, and long-term appeal. On top of that, there isn't even much to spend your prize money on, which makes your progress feel kind of pointless, especially when you take into account there's no storyline here. So I'll be honest, I got bored of it pretty damn quickly and I jumped back into online matches because that's where the real excitement was. But there is one cool thing about career mode, and that is flexibility. You can either start your career with your own created fighter or take control of one of the licensed pros. And that at least gives you options, but overall the mode needs way more love. And then there's the elephant in the room, monetization. See, Undisputed costs about €40 on Steam, which is fair enough for a base game. But then you look at the DLCs, and suddenly things don't look that great. Right now there are 5 paid fighter packs, and if you want the complete roster, you've got to drop another €80 on top of the base price. That's like double the cost of the actual game just for characters that arguably should have been included from the start. And you know, what makes it sting even more is the timing. Fans have been begging for fixes since early access, pointing out core gameplay issues that are still unresolved. Meanwhile, the devs keep prioritizing paid DLC fighters instead of addressing the problems that actually affect the game. It paints a picture that's really hard to feel good about, right? Like, they are more interested in squeezing their existing audience than building trust and creating a quality product. Alright, finally, let's talk about the roster. On paper it looks quite good, around 100 real fighters, male and female, with plenty of big names included. Sounds impressive, right? But once you start actually breaking it down by weight class and gender, the options don't feel nearly as rich as they first appear. And that's even before you factor in the paywall. Because significant chunk of fighters are locked behind paid DLCs. So let's take, for example, the heavyweight division, the most stacked weight class in the game. You get about 30 fighters in total, but 12 out of them are DLC. And some of those paid ones aren't even new fighters, they're just alternate versions of existing ones, like 1964 Muhammad Ali or 2009 Tyson Fury. And out of the remaining 18 heavyweights available without extra payment, only 4 fighters are actually active boxers: Usyk, Fury, Wilder and Joyce. The rest are legends and historical names, which is cool for nostalgia, don't get me wrong, but not exactly exciting if you wanted to play with today's stars. And you know, it gets even worse when you move into lighter divisions. Light heavyweight, for example, has only 9 fighters in total, and 2 out of those are locked behind paid DLC. So yeah, while the roster looks impressive at first glance, once you dive into it, you realize it's thinner than it should be. Undisputed really is a tale of unrealized potential. From the very beginning, it showed flashes of something special, and in some ways it still does. But the harsh truth is that I just don't see it ever becoming the boxing game that so many players were hoping for. And because of all the issues I mentioned in this review, my relationship with the game is quite complicated. On one hand, the matches can be genuinely addictive. I find myself coming back again and again. But then, unfortunately, after just a couple of fights, the frustration creeps in. And that's the core problem. This isn't your button-smashing arcade brawler, where you can just throw a storm of punches without thinking. Undisputed leans into simulation, and honestly, that's really damn cool. But because of that focus on the simulation, every flaw in the gameplay shines brighter than it would in a more casual game. So here's where I land. If you're absolutely starving for a new boxing game, and you can stomach the imperfections that I mentioned in this review, Undisputed can still deliver tons of fun. But if the issues I've described sound like deal breakers to you, well then this probably isn't the game you've been waiting for. At the end of the day, Undisputed has the punch, but it just doesn't have the heart.